Greetings, I am Erin Patton, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the Meta Business Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, I am Erin Patton, also known as Master L, and welcome to the Meta Business Millennial. I am joined today by a special guest, Valarie Angle, the founder of the WellNest Global, creator of WellNest Global, and just visionary for WellNest Global. And I'm very excited to talk to her about her community because for me, I like to always kind of preface the guests. I understand that this healing journey can be a lonely one, especially when you're starting out. And for this woman, she has created a community of healers, of people who are seekers and just lovers of life and wellness. And I just can't wait to learn more about her and the work that she's created. So welcome, Valarie, to our podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and chat with you today.
You're very welcome. I'm honored also to have you here today. And as always, I love to have my guests talk about themselves. And you're going to talk a lot about yourself. So be okay with that. It's okay. And I really want to let you know this is a safe space, and I would love for you to share a lot of it about where you're from, your background, maybe your educational, pursuits, a little bit of your professional career, and how that might have led you to where you are, or might not have led you to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah. I think everything works together to kind of nudge and direct you on your path, so even if you're off track, it kind of nudges you back toward your life purpose. So I definitely think my upbringing had something to do with who I am today. I was raised in Southern Indiana, United States, and very much a rural, very small farm community. I spent most of my time by myself, just kind of playing out in the yard and in the cornfields and just living with my imagination,
Yes.
So, this was primarily early 80s is when I was growing up, 80s, and I had a very active, I call it my imagination now, but sometimes knowing what we learn to know through our spiritual journey, I think it was just kind of a multidimensional life, much of my time I was in another world, just like playing with my fairy friends, talking to my UFO friends, like just wild and crazy. If I was telling somebody this as an adult, they'd probably want to take me and institutionalize me. But I mean, that's how I spent my time. I just didn't have neighbors close by. And so I spent a lot of time by myself. I was raised in kind of the edge of the Bible Belt. And here I am living in Roanoke, Virginia, still kind of in the Bible Belt. So there was always an underlying pervasive theme of very conservative Christian values. Yeah. And what seemed to kind of keep coming up through my life thematically was worthiness or lack of worthiness, depending on the denomination that you get involved with, and guilt. And I remember a lot of nights just being a little girl and kind of like begging God to like forgive me for being a bad girl. It's just if I'd gotten like peed my pants at school or gotten into trouble or something, and having this horrendous fear that I would be separated from my family if something happened to one of us, death or a catastrophe or something, and just having a lot of fear. So unworthiness, guilt, and fear were sort of underlying and kind of like the alternate side to this very free, fun, imaginative day life that I had growing up. So I think that all will eventually play into who I would become later on in life. But I was a toxic people pleaser from the get go, you
Girl,
know.
I know that life.
So I wanted to be a good girl, and
Yeah.
after running out the kindergarten room into the street the first day of school, I got my
Mm,
act together and began pleasing people. And
mm.
that really is what carried me through probably the first 35 years of my life was just,
Girl.
yeah, like what does society need from me? What do my parents need from me? What should I do? What's the right thing to do? This the career track that is the one that I should do? So so yeah, just like toxic people pleasing, and really stepping away from imagination and creativity and just embracing my, controlling type A, get it done personality.
Yes.
And so I ended up, I always knew as a child, always knew I had to get out of Indiana. And so we visited Florida when I was 7. We visited my uncle, and I fell in love with Florida. So I was like, I'm going to college in Florida. So I did, and ended up, after kind of toiling around, not sure what I wanted to do. I went into education. I fell in love with young children and how their brains develop. And I think just a big part of that was being with them while they were exploring their imagination and their interdimensionality and that freedom. I just
Yes.
loved being around that. It helped free me, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that for a long, long time, about 20 years. And then, bureaucracy, red tape, all that kind of stuff started nudging me. And that's kind of what my, higher self, greater consciousness was using. Like, oh, look at this. You don't like this part of teaching,
Mhm.
right? You don't
Mhm.
like these tests, and you don't like these kids having to sit and listen so long. And the contrast just was like attacking me. I couldn't
Yeah.
focus on the parts I loved because the heaviness of the parts I didn't love
Yes.
just wouldn't get out of my way. And
Wow.
so, you know, at the time, I was like frustrated by that because I consider myself to be an optimist. Of course, I was still a people pleaser and wanted to stay on till retirement. I went to college. I went and got, first my master's degree in leadership, and then an advanced graduate degree in, like the school principal administration and supervision. And
Wow.
I was on that track because that's
Yes.
what my administrators wanted me to do.
Right.
And I just kept doing it, but I was just more and more and more unhappy. So
Yes.
so I did. That was my track. That was my pre awakening, pre dark night of the soul life. And it was just, very full of love by my family. I was very loved by both my parents and siblings and my extended family, but with tainted by some of that people pleasing toxicity and that religious doctrine that unfortunately in that case was more negative.
Mm. Mm. I'm so grateful that you shared this because it really aligns and resonates with me. I also had, going to college, studying business, doing a liberal arts honors program, going to New York, going to Harvard, getting 2 masters at Harvard, working in executive offices after that, and being completely unhappy. Like my tag is I went from Harvard to healing
Yeah.
because I graduated pinnacle of education. Oh, like everyone,
Why aren't you happy?
why aren't you happy, girl? You didn't did it all, spent all the bread. You know what I'm saying? These are
Yeah.
not, cheap pursuits, very, you know, expensive, like takes time,
Mhm.
energy, you're studying, you're working, like you're really putting your life out there, giving your life to this pursuit.
Yeah.
And then you have this dark night of the soul.
Mhm.
And for me, I always talk about my trauma. I talk about being in an abusive relationship, losing my
Mhm.
father, friend. almost losing my mother all at the same time. And that shook me up. And I would love for you to go into more detail about what that looked like for you, because you did mention Dark Night of the Soul. These are your words. So I want to learn more, or if you could share more with our listeners and our viewers about what that looked like or felt like for you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. When you say Dark Night of the Soul, when I think about that and I do use that term, I picture myself like where I was spending 50% of my time in the corner of my sofa, covered up with my cat, like thinking, what am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah. It could be that too.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it was a ride. So I believe it. I believe all along, my higher self was dangling that carrot of getting back to my spirituality, getting
Yeah.
back to my imagination. It
Yes.
was so strong with me as a child. And I look now back at my family, and there's a lot of like highly intuitive, readers and psychics and things like that in my family. We kind of always brush that under the rug because of our religion,
Really?
Like,
Wow.
don't talk about the tarot cards. So
Really?
yeah, so it's like it was always kind of there, but it wasn't normalized in my upbringing.
Right.
So I was just kind of like, I didn't talk about it. And I was always curious. In high school, a friend would have a party, and her parents had this amazing library of metaphysical and spiritual books. And everyone would be like playing pool and foosball and drinking in the other room. And I'd be in there reading metaphysical books.
Wow.
It was always alive in me.
Yeah.
And the first big sign when I was married in my mid-20s and was teaching. I was getting ready to have my first child, about 27 years old, and my husband hurt his back, and he ended up getting prescribed OxyContin and ended up falling into addiction with this. And one day, he was in and out of rehab. I was teaching. He was trying to hold down a job with his pain. And one day he just came to me and said, "Hey, I tried to fill my prescription, which is a narcotic, in two pharmacies, and I got caught. And so I've got to leave because I don't want to get arrested." And so he just packed the car up and he left, and I never saw him again. And so I had, our daughter, and I had a stepson that I'd raised for 10 years as well. And he took him and dropped him off at his mom's. We had full custody. So that was incredibly traumatic for me. Um, it really shook me to the core. But instead
Mm.
of, you know, rethinking who I was or what my purpose was, I just dug in harder. And I think a lot of times those of us who are real stubborn and
Yeah.
really pulled into that people pleasing,
Yeah.
that's what we do. We're like, okay, I'm just going to like get superhuman strength and fight harder.
I'm gonna
And
please greater.
I'm like, okay, like, people
Yeah.
will understand if you have an emotional breakdown right now. It's okay. But no, I was
Yeah.
like pressing on. So I just pushed through, and um, kind of having a sense of instability and what's going to happen, and can I raise my kid on my own. I very hastily married a local guy, and we had moved. At this point, I'd gone to school in Florida, taught in Georgia for a while, love that, but we moved to Virginia because my parents had moved here. So we had moved here, and that's where all that kind of went down. So I married a gentleman from here, and it was well, I'm a Leo and he's an Aries, and it was fire and fire, and we had a lot of good times, but ultimately we just, I was like, if we don't split up, like we're probably going to kill each other. Like this is just
Yeah.
not a good match.
Yeah.
It's just not healthy. We didn't communicate healthy. We both had a lot of trauma and immaturity that we carried with us that hadn't been healed yet,
Yes.
because we were stubborn. And so that I think that separation. We had two children together over the course of 3 years. So I have three kids now. And that I think put me at my limit, you know, just the emotional uh, pain and hurt that would occur regularly in that relationship and our communication and stuff just kind of put me over the edge. And it was also parallel at the same time, like I said prior, I just kept all of the things I didn't love about my work were just put in front of my face, like constantly. And I'm always telling people around me, like, look for the good, look for what you want to focus on. Like, let's keep focused on what it is that you do want. But sometimes that contrast and that
Mm,
what you don't like is there to show you something. It's there to
yes.
help you make a different decision. And so
Yes.
if it keeps showing up, take heed. It's if it's not going away, then take heed. Something needs to change. And
Mhm.
finally, after both of those dramatic relationships, and then unhappiness in my work, I just was doing a summer job, which often teachers do. Right? You teach, and then you go do some random summer job. I was managing properties at the beach for the summer, and I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to stop all of it. I'm going to
Wow.
move a town away. I'm just going to stop, leave my career. I'm not happy. Um, I'd already separated and was getting a divorce from my second husband. And I was like, I just want a clean slate. That's what I want. And that felt very freeing and wonderful in the moment. And I think that my soul was so pleased that I finally saw the light and made the change.
Yeah.
But that that was only the beginning, right? Like it's like we're like, I've seen the light. It's gonna be all great from here. But then you have to heal.
And do the
And
work.
you gotta do
Do the
the
work.
work. And that is what is really just unpredictable
Yeah.
and wild. And so for the next probably 4 or 5 years, I just dug in and started doing the work. And it wasn't easy, and I wasn't happy all the time. But I had a sense of freedom, and I had a sense of being on track for the first time ever, you know, and spiritual people, mentors, guides, in human form were just coming into my life left and right. And this community was just forming around me. Books would fall into my lap, articles, podcasts, YouTube, things that I'd never heard of before, videos. And I talk like I didn't chase it. It just all started coming when I opened myself up and said, yes, like I'm ready to accept what this path is that I need. It all just started falling into place and coming to me, interwoven with the healing. So
So
it
many
took
things
some
there.
pain.
Pain and all the things. I just have to say what deeply resonated with me were a few things. First, it was around the contrast. Because one thing that we're seeing a lot of in the spiritual world and spiritual space is the toxic positivity, for lack of better
Mm,
words.
right.
And that is me. That was me big time. And I have the awareness of it now. So I'm having to push through the things that seem scary to me, or push through things that seem like that's where I'm at now. I'm having to push through because I'm still not used to that confrontational energy, that contrast energy. It's very, very strange for me. Yet we one thing that my mentor kind of example my mentor gave me was showing me this video of shark divers and how to divert a shark. And I'm like, what the fuck are we watching this? Because if I'm not first of all going to be with no sharks, okay? But think of metaphysically, like we are oftentimes surrounded by shark energy, and we choose to run. The people pleasers run from it. We choose to please instead of confront the madness that is the shark energy. And
Mhm.
so what we're doing in our shifting of that is redirecting it, transmuting it, and making it higher because this needs to go
Mhm.
higher. This is
Mhm.
not allowable, this kind of behavior, well, however it looks.
Right.
And so I love that you brought that up because it's something that I too am working through, actively healing. And now I'm going to be diverting sharks like the shark swim. I'm going to be redirecting the energy, because I can welcome that contrast as oh, this is good for me too, good learning from me too.
Mhm.
And another part that you said was all I had to do was say yes.
Mhm.
Because trauma lives in isolation, I am understanding. And when we're isolating ourselves, when we're in that guilt, shame, that victim, that you talked
Mhm.
about,
Mhm.
we're not talking to people because we're too fucking scared.
Yeah.
We're not really honest with ourselves because we don't want to believe that this madness can be happening.
Mhm.
And so we're blocking our blessings in that sense. But when we say yes and acknowledge, I can get through this, or I can find another way, or whatever the yes to is, then you have what you talked about. You get the books coming to you, the guides, the mentors, the spiritual healers, of course, in due time, maybe one at a time, maybe half at a time. However, in due time, you'll have the team you need for that acceleration that you've been preparing for.
Yeah.
So this really resonated deeply with me and kind of what I'm experiencing, have been experiencing, because this journey is about a lived experience. So I would love for you to talk about because you were so traditional, like you did your teacher job, you were on a path to administration, which is like everyone's dream when they're doing this work in education. And then all of a sudden one day you're like, I'm done. I'm moving to a new town. Okay, come on now. You got to talk about some details here. What did that look like? What did that work
Mhm.
look like for you? Because you was talking about how you had to get into the work. You had the
Yeah.
awakening. Now I have to do the work.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was being a lifelong people pleaser. I That was my first shift that I had to accept. Like, okay, I can't. Clearly, everyone's not going to be happy with me when I announce that after 20 plus years, I'm not signing my contract this year. They send you your contract, they know you're going to sign it, you want that paycheck and that pension, and
Yeah,
you don't sign it. You get the calls. What are you doing? What are you thinking? From family, from friends, and good intention, wanting to make sure you're safe and secure. And um, so that was really, really hard. And I did question my sanity a lot because I thought, maybe they're right. What am I doing? Is this really dumb? Am I going to regret this? Can I go back? And you kind of teeter there for a minute until you can stand your ground. And I think a lot of times we teeter and then fall back into the old way just
of
because
course.
it's easier. So teeter,
Yeah,
fall back into it.
it's a
Don't
practice
quit.
vibration.
Yeah, like, just kidding. I don't really, don't really want to quit. So
Hmm.
that was really, that kind of plunged me into, sadness and some depression and some feeling like I was disappointing people.
Oh,
And being a mom, um, of three, and I'm the primary caretaker for them, that always had to stay. I have to feed these babies. I have
right.
to make sure they're clothed and secure and healthy and safe. And so that kind of, lays across everything. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was tough, but it seemed that no matter what, something would come to me just in the right moment. A
Of
word of
course.
encouragement from an unexpected person, maybe a mentor in education that says, you know what, I really admire what you're doing what is right and following your heart's path versus just, time to make the donuts, going back every day and not really wanting to be there. And little words like that from people can go a long way. And then just finding, I think one of the first things I found, I think a really easy introduction into metaphysics for people is the book The Secret. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel so
Yes.
it doesn't feel so threatening or crazy.
Yes.
So that was one of the first things that fell into my lap. My dad had a
Mhm.
copy, and I was cleaning out his library, and I was like, "I'll read this." And then that gave me the inspiration to look into some of those other, contributors in the book, start reading their materials, and I discovered Esther Hicks and
Come
Abraham
on.
Hicks.
That's my godmama. I call her
Yes,
my
I'm like,
godmama.
she's my spirit animal.
That's my godmama. I already
Yes.
see that.
I see. I knew that we were vibing on a similar level because whenever I'm like confused, I'm like, let me go put some Esther on. Some Esther.
I like have all her phrases. Like I have her books. I have her like
Yeah.
it's like encoded in my DNA now. You know what I'm saying? Like vibration before precedes manifestation, like practice vibration. Like even the way I speak my some of the lexicon, it's just
Yeah.
she's taught me how to speak about myself in a way that I will always have.
Exactly. And I mean, that's part of the work, right? Changing your
Yeah.
vocabulary.
Yes.
One of the major shifts I made was coming to the realization that I'm not my thoughts. The thoughts that came into my head are often programming from
Yes.
caretakers, education,
Yes.
bosses, media.
Yes.
And I mean, gosh, I was like 35 before I realized that. I mean, I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not that's not my identity. So if
Yeah.
I think something horrible, then I'm not a horrible person. It's just this random thought that came through my head that I can say, cancel, push that away. I don't need that. And learning to create my thoughts. And when
Yes.
you delve into masters and start, reading um, philosophers of over time, and the ascended masters, and current speakers and philosophers, and you start letting that kind of brainwash you, those kinds of words and terminology and ways of thinking, um, and you just naturally begin feeling better. You get
Yes.
it clicks, it speaks to your soul and your spirit,
Yes.
and you recognize that truth, and you recognize that this is what's real, and so much of this illusion out here, that's not even real. I
At
was
all.
making money and climbing the ladder and having the reputation and was miserable, but here I am just starting all over again, and knowing nothing really, starting with a blank slate, learning this new stuff, but I'm incredibly happy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so a lot of what we've been taught is just a massive illusion of how things should be. And really, how things should be is whatever your heart and soul has for you. And only you can really know that. And
Mhm.
so just learning to tune into that, that was the big work for me. Is I had become so disconnected from my soul, from my voice, and from my higher self, and greater consciousness, and it was just like ping pong bouncing around from worldly wisdom that was confusing and often like contradictory and not making me happy. So
Mhm.
so yeah, that was my work, was just re-exposing myself to some of the stuff that I was curious about and loved when I was growing up, that I had just pushed away and gotten away from, and just embracing it. And like we like to say around here, like embracing the weird.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
so many people in my community now with so many interesting healing and spiritual philosophies and modalities, and
Yes.
that's where, like, all the time I'm meeting new people that are bringing something. They're like, oh, I do this new thing that I've never heard of, and I'm like, what is that? How curious.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and I just go with it. I'm like, bring all the weird. I love it.
I love that. And since you kind of already started to segue into your current business, because this is the meta business millennial, so we got to get into the business.
Yeah.
I would love for you to talk more about as you were going through your own transitioning. Obviously, these ideas were coming to you around how could I make a living doing this? Like, how can I be compensated properly so that I can pay
Right.
my bills, take care of my children, take care of myself? well. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Not just like getting by. I want to really make some bread, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so can you talk about how that transition looked for you? Like, even down to the details, because you're creating a network, a community that
Yeah.
requires a lot more resources than your average, you know, breath work or chiropractor business or doula service. Like I'm just reading your background there. But
Yeah.
like starting those kind of businesses is very
Yeah.
different from creating a network. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. It was an evolution. And I began using the 22 processes and the Abraham Hicks book. I think it's
Ask and it is
Ask and It Is
given.
Given. Yeah. Yeah. So I began using those processes to figure out like, what do I want? So many people don't even know what they want. They just think they want what everyone else has. And
Yeah.
so began doing that work. And I had made myself a promise after these two divorces. I was like, okay, I don't want to keep doing that. So I'm going to wait until my kids are grown, about 10 years. And then, you know, here's the relationship I would like to have at that time. And I just kind of played with that as a sort of a side thing. It wasn't even really an intention of my focus. My focus was like, how am I going to pay my bills? Um, but it was just for fun. So I would do that kind of on the side. But my main focus was like, okay, what kind of things do I enjoy? What am I good at? And honestly, it was a lot of trial and error. I had some background in nutrition and fitness from college, and I dabbled a little bit in nutrition coaching myself, but I thought, I'm kind of over teaching. Like I did that for so long over that. So I did a lot of trial and error with what do I want to do? And I had to gain some skills, right? So in teaching, some of the skill sets that I needed there for administration and leadership didn't really transfer into the kind of business that I do. So, obviously I had to do some skills training in, social media and marketing and sales and different things like that. So,
Hmm.
you have that portion of it
Yep.
um, that I took some time to do. And then but what I really, really focused on, and what I think is one of the most important things that anyone can focus on, is that spiritual work. And, like Esther says, knowing what you want,
Hmm.
disciplining yourself to focus on it. And then,
Hmm.
as she says, feeling good is the work. Feeling good is the
Yes.
work. So
Tending
you
to
got
your
to get,
vibration.
yes. So you got to get from what I want to how it feels. And
Yes.
then it all kinds of starts to come into play. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's what I was doing. Is just processes, and got a part-time job at a hippie shop, like a hippie clothing shop.
Hmm.
And it sounds simple, but with my um, the Christian community around me and my teaching community around me, I was like, what are they going to think? I'm like at this hippie shop. What will
That's so
people think of
real.
me? And I
That's so
worried about
real.
the judgment and
Yes.
like my ego,
Yes. Yes.
And but you know what? It was a blast, and I
Yeah.
learned sales and marketing
Come
and
on now.
retail. Yeah,
Yes.
and then that I got an opportunity to manage a little boutique downtown. So I moved and started doing that. That exploded um, my skill set for business, because that is really the one thing that had been missing. And I learned so much from that opportunity, and I'm ever grateful to these women who gave me the opportunity to come from teaching into this whole other world.
Yeah.
So just worked on my skill set, but that's when the universe and God just started dropping things into my lap. And the first thing
Yeah.
was my now husband, Jonathan. Like the first day that I started at the boutique, he walked in the door as my UPS driver.
Let's go.
And so I'm like, oh, I can't have a crush on my UPS driver. This is not good. And I have a 10-year contract, right? I'm not going to date for 10 years. So anyway, so we became friends, and we started brainstorming about opening a wellness center, because we spent our time talking about plants and herbs and oils and cannabis and all kinds of things. And um, So every I say we had 1,000 10-minute dates, like every day he'd come in and take a 10-minute break and we'd talk. And so we kind of manifested in our mind a wellness center. And then we actually went and started looking at buildings, and then we actually rented a space, and then we opened a facility. And um again, it seems that the things that I needed at the time would just be brought to me. So when that kind of wrapped up, we had to move. We bought a house and we had to move into our house, and at the same time, the lease changed for the building we were in, and they were kind of changing the model. So they were going from like a retail center to kind of more of an Airbnb building, and everything shifted. And we were like, we need to close. Like it's shifting. So that was a big sign that it was time to, re process, see what do I want to do with my time? Where do I want to be? How do I want to spend it? And we had spent so much time. I said I didn't want to teach, but I did end up teaching little mini classes
Yeah.
to so many holistic providers, because they're like, how do I make a Facebook page? How do I make a Twitter? How do I market?
Mhm.
How do I, And so a friend of mine, one of our members, we would get together and make little classes, and we would give them classes and how to do this. And they would say, well, can you just do it for me? And so that's kind of how we morphed into where we are now. It was just,
Interesting.
yeah, it was just being open to the shifts in the sand and the change, being willing to change and pivot and go with the flow. And,
Mhm.
like if you think of life as like you're floating down a river on a raft or in a canoe, and, it wants to take you a new direction, but you're paddling and fighting it and trying to go this other way,
Mm.
you're making it harder for yourself. It's no fun
Yeah.
anymore. You're working too hard and you're trying to
Yeah.
cling to this other path. And maybe there's a dangerous waterfall that way. And
Yes.
you need to go this way. So when we open ourselves up to the flow and just are willing to shift, let the doors close, follow the open doors. So that's what we did. And so now, I use those skills that I learned as God dropped them on me along the way, and the universe opened doors, and now I get to be home with my dogs all day. I'm here when my kids get home from school. We get to go do whatever they need to do for sports or activities. I'm here for them. I love my clients. I love doing anything I can to support them. And one of my big focuses is I want to I want to stay on course for myself, obviously, because I want to be happy and satisfied. But I also want my kids to see how to do that, and I want to share that with anyone that's interested in knowing. So whether it's
Mm.
someone in California that's looking for a Reiki provider, or someone who is a counselor who's looking for a way to get her name out there to new clients, I want to be part of that,
Yeah.
because I want to be part of that healing journey, and I want to help in whatever way I can. And what is Maya Angelou says, like what you do, and how does it go? Let me see if I can see it. Oh, like yourself, like what you do, and like how you do it. Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you gotta know yourself. You gotta know what you
Mhm.
want. And
Mhm.
you have to love yourself first. If you don't, your body, mind, or soul is going to show you
Mhm.
where you're not paying attention. And then, how can you like what you do, and like who you work with, and like how you do it, and like, you know, waking up every day and knowing that that's your purpose.
That's so
So,
beautiful. And I love to hear that because, for me and my journey, I've had to really go through that as well in terms of discovering what it is that I can offer and what do I actually enjoy doing.
right.
My motto now is play, fun, and love. Because
Awesome.
I want to make sure that everything that I do, I'm feeling like it's fun. Like I'm feeling like there's some play aspect to it. Like it's not all just like work, work, work.
Mhm.
And on top of that, I'm really loving myself in the process and
Mhm.
honoring myself in the process because if I don't, no one will.
Right.
And I loved too, in just thinking about your shift from people pleasing to now you're in service to people, yet still in alignment with yourself.
Yeah.
And I love that for folks that are listening that may find themselves like, I just love to help people. That's why we become people pleasers, is we want
Right.
to see other people win. Like what's so bad about that?
Right.
Like however, if it's at the expense of ourselves, then yeah, that's when it starts to get bad. However,
Yes.
you're able to find the balance here, and not only find the balance, you do it with someone you love, like your
Yeah.
husband,
Yeah.
your divine mate.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, can we talk a little bit about that? For the men and women out there who maybe are thinking about starting businesses with their divine partners or with their mates, or someone who they love deeply. Maybe there's no title to it, but talk about
Right.
that journey.
Yeah. I think one of the most powerful parts of our relationship is how it developed out of friendship. But I
Yes.
have no doubt, not an ounce of doubt in my mind, that our um, coming together was intentional. I think we've probably come across each other a dozen times over the course of our life. We've talked about that. Like, you were in Atlanta here and you were in Virginia Beach here. Oh my gosh, we were probably in the same place at the same time, but
Wow.
we weren't ready for each other yet.
Of
Like, it
course.
wasn't the season. And
Hmm.
we've crossed in and out. And once we both kind of were in a place in our life where we really assessed the kind of love and friendship and relationship that we wanted, like what would really feed our souls. And like for me, I like to write words. I wrote it out, and for him, he kind of daydreams more about it. But
Yeah.
I'll say, well, I manifested you, and he's like, no, I manifested you. And it doesn't matter. It's all about how you feel. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if you write it or draw it or dream about it. It's how it
Yeah.
makes you feel. And we
Exactly.
were both spending some time feeling that out before we ever met. And so that's when the magnets came together, right? It's like,
Hmm.
okay, you're ready now. You can have
Hmm.
this. And way ahead of schedule for me. I really wasn't looking, and it wasn't really, he didn't think it was in his timing either. Um, but when we came together, I mean, we hit it off, and it was easy to daydream about, oh, look, this storefront's open, wouldn't it be cool to put like this here and do this? And it was easy to just walk around and do that.
Hmm.
And then it was easy to take the next step and say, well, it wouldn't hurt to go ask them how much the rent is, or
Yeah.
it wouldn't hurt to go, write up a business plan. And it was just fun. We just had fun, and we just dreamt about it, and even now when I'm thinking of doing something new or adding something or whatever, I'll just be like, hey, do you feel like dreaming for a minute? I just want to run this by you. Or are you in like a dreaming mood? Um, because I want that good energy to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
I
like
want to know
your
you're in the right place.
your co-creator,
Yes.
your built-in co-creator.
Right. So yeah, we honor the emotion that is necessary, and ask, like, how you in a good mood right now? I want you to bring your good energy to this discussion.
Yes.
Um, so some respect for each other, and understanding that through the course of life, every day is not a good day, every moment's not a good moment, and always bumping up against other people on the planet, and they're bringing their stuff into our circle sometimes,
Yeah.
especially with teenagers.
Yes.
but but yeah, it's really powerful, and I think we're really lucky. I think when you have someone that you can co-create actively with, or a community, which is kind of what we build now,
Hmm.
you bring that power. You're
Hmm.
magnifying your power when you can learn to collaborate
Hmm.
instead of seeing people around you as a competitor, you
Yes.
know?
That part.
Yeah. So when you come together in collaboration, you just magnify each other's power
Yes.
versus pushing against one
Yes.
another, um, and eliminating that momentum. So,
I love that. I
yeah.
love that when you're coming together, because when you speak about the relationship, it was just the coming together of two souls with very pure and I would say high intentions.
Hmm.
And and that has a ripple effect on the
Yeah.
community that you guys are building, So it sounds like you have a facility and you offer services. Can you speak in more detail about your business operations and what it is that you offer folks today?
Yeah, for
Mhm,
sure. So we don't have the facility anymore. We closed that
mhm,
down.
mhm.
That was so fun. It was such a blast. Um, but what I learned when we closed was that it was exhausting. And so
Okay.
I learned that I was kind of running on adrenaline and wasn't listening. People would say, like, "You're here all the time. Don't you want a vacation? Would you like to rest?" And I'd be like, "No, I love it." And I did love it. But that was a lesson I learned, because when we
Yeah.
moved and we closed the space and we moved, the tiredness hit me. Like, I was
Mm.
so tired. And
Yes.
I just had to kind of nest, and we were moving in, so I nested, and I took a lot of time to kind of rejuvenate my body and
Mhm,
just meditate more and have more ceremonial activities just for myself, and to
mhm.
spend more time with my friends on just a social level versus a work, kind of relationship. So we did close the space last year, but I'd already started doing a lot of the promotion for the people who were working in the space. So the
Mm.
people who were offering services and classes in the wellness center, um, a lot of them signed on, and I began helping to promote them. So what we do is we run um, a Facebook and Instagram ad for them every month. We create a promotional post for them, remembering that a lot of them don't like to do that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, we work with them to get at least one social media up, and hopefully a website as well. And then to get their, pixels and their SEO going, so that we can direct traffic and help them grow their client base. So we
Okay.
do the ad, we do the posting, and then we cross post to LinkedIn. We do an e-news blast, and then of course, WellNest Global. We're always reaching out to tell people about our network as well. So we're always growing our audience. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. So the more we
Nice.
grow, the more it benefits them. And
Yes.
yeah, we're working on just letting people know about our vision. That our vision is that no matter where you are in the world, you would have this resource to come to see, is there anyone I could go to for a healing session right now, whether it be virtual or in person. And
Okay.
so a global directory of a healing network,
Oh,
in the sense of
wow.
marketing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
that's cool. I definitely need
Yeah.
to get on that network.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to have
That's
you
beautiful.
on. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about maybe like some challenges that you face in doing this? Because I know folks who are in especially the technology space, the community building space, and are and or just working on their own. Like what are some
Mm.
things that you've kind of experienced in this startup journey and how have you navigated it potentially using some of your metaphysical skills, your spirituality skills?
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, oh, lots of challenges.
Of course.
So many challenges. Some of them come in the form of communication and,
Yeah.
just messaging and helping people to understand, our spirit of collaboration, and that, we're here to help spread light, and not compete. So especially when we have the physical space, um, even other woo woo people or holistic people would have a sense of competition. And
Yeah.
so that's hard, because my
Yeah.
people pleaser would come up and I would be like, no, 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 like me, And so sometimes I love your analogy about the sharks earlier, because I felt that, like,
Mhm.
okay, I have to like hit this head on,
Mhm.
and confront this.
Yeah.
Um, and also, in our having a physical space, anyone who's doing that has a whole set of challenges, on top of running your regular, your business in terms of legal, marketing, sales, um,
Yeah.
working with, realtors and landlords and things like that. I had one gentleman that we worked with that was just frankly just chauvinistic. And getting the courage to come up and just speak honestly about that to him and his stakeholders that he was working with, and call him out for it
Yeah.
was tough because
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that.
I
I wanted to just
know. I
run.
know. We're right here.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So those things have been hard in terms of tough lessons and things to learn in business. Um, and one of the biggest things that I think has been kind of a consistent theme for me is patience. I can say ease, flow, go with the flow, and deeply mean it. But when you can have a sense of satisfaction with where you are in the moment, and you can feel the joy of celebrating everything that has manifested in your life at that time, you can really keep the momentum going. But in those moments where you're like, I want more, or I want this now, and you want to get kind of super specific, or I guess just kind of getting ahead of yourself, I can really feel how that knocks me off course when I do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I try to get, I try to work too hard. I'm trying
Yeah.
to do the human work too much, and I take my focus off of the spiritual work and the enjoying life part.
Mhm.
Um, I really can feel how that will knock me off course. So that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest things I'm working on right now in my life is um, remembering that my actions should be inspired actions.
Yes.
And
Inspired to action. Yes.
yes, and not just tedious. What's one more thing I can do? What's another thing I could do? I want to stop doing those one more things just for the
Yeah.
sake of doing them. And I
Yeah.
want them to be, if I'm doing it, I want it to be because it came to me as an inspired action and it
Yes.
has meaning. So,
Yes.
and that all comes from taking adequate time in nature and with myself and in
Yes.
meditating
Yes.
and
Yes.
yeah, and communing with the people, my spiritual circle, and letting them share their gifts with me and sharing mine with them and all of that. So it all comes back to that foundation of self-care and
Mhm.
spirituality. Um,
Mhm.
and that to me, when I'm there and I'm resonating fully in that space, that's when I'm satisfied. That's when I feel successful.
Mm.
Yeah.
This is really good because there are a few things that you talked about that deeply resonated with me. And the first that is something I actually wrote a blog post about, something I continue to heal in myself as I move more in this meta business space. And that's the issue of competition. And that fundamentally is what drives business. I went to Harvard Business School. I went to Macomb School of Business. I went to a business magnet high school at Lamar. I've been studying business for a long time.
Mhm.
And we even call people who work at other companies like ours our competitors.
Right.
Like that's their name.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, to assume just by being in the holistic business that the culture of business would be different. Yeah, I didn't make that assumption. But, I also had to realize, wow, also the business needs healing. The structure, the system of business, the foundation of business needs healing. And that's essentially
Right.
what inspired meta business.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage listeners and viewers who are like us and who are moving into a more holistic path or a metaphysical or spiritual path to not assume that it's going to be paved with roses and rainbows and
Mhm.
shiny things. It's likely going to look maybe in the beginning worse than where you came from because to your point about us tending to our vibration, we're still carrying that vibration from which we came.
Right.
Okay. So we have to heal those aspects of ourselves so that we can experience more rainbows and flowers
Mhm.
and sweet smelling things and butterflies and stuff because we have to do the work internally, the
Mhm.
self-care you speak of, the meditation, the walking in nature. The work is the healing. And
Mhm.
my mentors remind me of that every day because I have a tendency like you to do things, many to-dos. I'll work until midnight, wake up at 6 a.m., work on my computer. There's always something to do, yet the work is in the healing. Especially
Mhm.
when you have that intention when you're doing the healing. It's like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is my work. Because
Mhm.
for me, I in the beginning especially had the opposite. I had the guilt around doing the healing things when I should have been working or I should have been doing something else.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
Like I would be getting a massage and thinking about all my things I needed to do after my massage because I'm taking all this time out to do a massage. Damn it,
Mhm.
you just double negative right there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You in the hole for that time. And so it's really about that self care that adds value to everything else you're doing in your life. So
Mhm.
I'm so glad that you lifted that up for me and for our
Mhm.
listeners and viewers because that's 100% spot on. And with that, I would love for you to like get more into like your offerings for your business because you were talking about you did some of the social media, some of the stuff. Where do you see that expanding? Like, how do you see yourself growing in your business?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. So on our website, wellnessglobal.com, we highlight some healers, wellness practitioners. Some are super woo woo. Some are chiropractors and doctors. We don't discriminate. We don't judge. We really want to be open to anyone who is coming from a sense of love and healing, who wants to help
Yes,
people in that way.
I
So
got that.
yeah, so it's all about wellness and recognizing that what someone is needing right now could vary, tremendously from what someone else is needing. And that, someone might be in a headspace to be able to accept physical healing, but not spiritual or energetic healing yet, or vice versa. Right. So we want to be open to that. And um, obviously we've created this great network here in the Roanoke Valley, and now we are expanding this first regionally across the U.S., and then we want to go globally and expand it to people around the world. Of course, if people are interested in other countries now, I can talk to them about that now. But one part of what we're doing is just a simple directory, a hyperlink directory listing.
Okay.
Um, that's just anybody can get their name on it. It's a $10 a month commitment. And that investment just provides them the space on our site where we can then, list their business and hyperlink over to their website or their social media to get more eyes on what they're doing. And then with
Interesting.
that, because that one is really just a networking um, uh, mentality for me, is to get to know as many people as I can. We offer a refer a pro on that. So if you refer somebody, you can actually earn the $10. So it's $10 a month. But if you sign up and then you refer your friend who does another kind of modality, they can, put you down there as their referrer, and you'll get your listing for free. So
Nice.
it's not really about the financial benefit on that one. It's just about growing our
Yes.
listing and
Yeah.
expanding that. So that's going to launch in May. That listing will launch in May. So signups are now. And
Okay.
it's on our website under practice. It's like wellnessglobal.com, and then you click practitioners. Um, and then the main thing that I spend most of my time with is either coaching wellness practitioners in either getting their mindset and their self right to step out and do the work. You've probably met a number of people too who, like, I'm a Reiki healer, or I'm a massage therapist or whatever, but they actually have no clients because they're afraid to actually do it. They're afraid to, like, tell anyone that they do it. So
Yeah.
part of it is overcoming that visibility piece. So I do some coaching in that regard, but then we do some marketing. So the professional marketing package is what I was speaking of earlier. It's
Yeah.
$85 a month, and they get Facebook and Instagram paid ad. We pay that. It's not 85 plus you pay us for the ad. It's included. So it's the ad and then the social media promotion every single month to our audience of about 13,000 right now. And
Nice.
these are all folks who are genuinely organically vested. So
Yeah.
we folks sign up. We go to like healing expos, conferences, and things like that. And then do opportunities like this where more people can get to hear about us and then go to our website and sign up.
Yeah.
I'm careful not to for our type of business and what we do. It's important to me that the people on our mailing list are genuinely interested in what we're doing
Yes.
versus having meta bots like paid Facebook people signing up so we have a list.
Yeah.
It just kind of defeats the whole organic sense of what we're doing. So
That part,
um,
we're gonna talk
yeah,
about that.
yeah. So
Mhm.
so yeah, it's a very engaged audience. We've got free Facebook groups. We have a community Facebook group. It's listed on our website, and then we have one that's for practitioners to come in and I want them to connect with each other. I want them to invite each other onto their podcasts and their Facebook lives, or do shared offerings together. So really about building relationships between professionals amongst themselves, and then supporting our community with encouragement and whatever offers and services that our practitioners have.
This
So
is so good. Beautiful. Like I literally am just so excited and to talk with you more and learn more and just, even put my little piece in it because I think that this is a beautiful offering for folks. 13,000 is a very admirable number, especially when you're talking about organic. And
right.
I want us to dig a little bit more into this because I also am coming from essentially the space of media. I've been doing a lot of my own personal social media for the past 2 years,
Mhm.
growing my following organically, and it feels stagnant. However, it's a lot of falling off and picking up
Right.
people who are actually in alignment with me.
Yes.
And so it's a lot of growth. However, the numbers don't always reflect that. And this also comes from our godmother, Abraham. She always talks about don't ever look at the reality of things because the
Yes.
vibration determines your reality. So
Right.
it's really funny when we're talking about this because I really want us to dig a little bit deeper for those that are watching and listening. And even for your, this can be something you share with your clients
Mhm.
around that organic following, because we all have the temptation, myself deeply, deeply included, to have the fame, and the fame will get me and when I have the fame, then I'll have the clients. And when I have the clients, then I'll have the revenue. When I have the revenue, then I'll be able to prove that I'm a legitimate business.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
guys, it's actually backwards. That's actually run it back. You know what I'm saying? Like it starts with have the legitimate business, do the work. You know what I'm saying? Then
Mm.
have the clients. And then eventually some of the clients will follow you. Some of them may not. Some of them may talk bad about you. You know what I'm saying? You have
Right.
all that. And
Yeah.
then you'll grow it and grow it and grow it. And eventually we'll have the fame.
Right.
Okay. So it actually works the other way around. And I want us to talk about that because the temptation there, and maybe it's not just a temptation, there is actually um a false belief,
Mhm.
a false teaching, a false program that we've been fed, that this social media instrument tool is all that we need for our business and for our success and for our validation and for
Right.
everything. And so, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, this is a great topic. So it's interesting because I have a client that I work with that has a massive following, very huge. I have to admit, the first time I spoke to her on Zoom, I was like butterflies. I knew who she was. I was like shaking. I had like total like you know fangirl syndrome. I don't fangirl much. So, um, so there's that example, and then I have some people that I work with here locally that have, if you looked on their social media or their email list, it'd be like in the very low hundreds. Um, but some of those people are much more financially successful, and I would venture to say happier and more satisfied with their life than, this one client that I have in mind that has a tremendous following that you would maybe call famous. So you're right. It is a part of that illusion that we've been, brainwashed to believe, all about that. The numbers and the fame makes you credible
Yes.
when, you know if you have this desire in your heart and you're moving toward it, you're not an imposter. This is your heart's work. You just let stomp on that. That's just, a little devil in your ear. That's not real. It has nothing to do with that. And I think it comes back to that whole competition conversation we had before, and the
Yes.
thought of like that scarcity mindset that there's not enough to go around. And it's like,
Yes.
guess what?
Yes.
There's like so much more to go around than you could even begin to fathom. And there's no need in the universe for you to begin to think that you're not going to get a piece of that infinite pie. There's
Yeah.
plenty of pie. There's plenty for you.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
just get that scarcity mentality, out of your head. I mean, you're going to have a little fun, like, oh, I want to be on this show. So and so got on this show. I want to be on this show. If that drives you, if that's your kind of, gets your juices flowing, then fine. But not to the point that it makes you feel insecure, or you're like, you're not good enough, or you're not worthy. Because those numbers, they really don't matter. I've seen, I probably doubted that myself before, and the universe needed to show me this illustration, and it's been brought before me. So I've seen it with my own eyes, guys. Like, it really truly has been evidence before me that your authenticity, your heart for what you do, that's what matters. And just feeling that joy in your heart for what you're doing and getting the rewards for. The more you love it, the more genuine you are about it, the more happy, successful, and satisfied you're going to feel. You know?
Yes. Yes, that part.
Yeah.
And this speaks to me because I'm juggling a lot of irons in the fire,
Yeah.
and I've been doing it for a few years, and I'm
Mm.
so deeply aligned with my work. Even this podcast, I consider part of that work, and amplifying not only my voice, but the voice of other people who have gone through challenges, gone through dark nights of the soul, and
Mhm.
emerged, gods and goddesses in the
Mm.
process. This is what the work looks like.
Yeah.
And as long as it took you to get to where you are today, like,
Mhm.
I mean, give yourself a fraction of that time to get to where you
Right.
want to be.
Yes.
And this is what I had to speak over myself, because I am the definition of my podcast. I am the millennial. I am the instant gratification, Instagram, instant oatmeal, instant type of, this is how I was raised.
Yeah.
And so I want my instant success.
Mhm.
Where's my instant success?
Right.
And that's how I operated, and that's how I treated myself. So when
Yeah.
I didn't get the likes, or when I didn't get the comments, or when I didn't get the follows, or when I didn't, all those things, I deeply judged myself on it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yet that maybe this isn't the path because it's not resonating with enough people fast enough. And
Right.
I really want to encourage folks that are listening and watching that this was me. Like, you're looking at
Mhm.
me doing this, and I was having these same kinds of thoughts, these
Mhm.
black thoughts, these victim thoughts. And
Yes.
it takes me having to reaffirm myself,
Mhm.
continue to work on my vibration, to know and trust that what I'm doing, what I'm enjoying, what I've been called to do, what I answered the call to do, what I feel in alignment with, is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And it looks exactly the way it's supposed to look. Period.
Amen. Yes. Absolutely.
Period.
Preach. That's right.
Period. Period.
That's right. And just
I,
being happy with the moment that you're in and
mhm,
enjoying it, you know,
mhm.
just loving it for what it
Mhm.
is.
Exactly, exactly. And I want you to talk a little bit about being a working mom. because you dug into that a little bit in
Yeah.
the beginning, and that transition, which I'm sure was a hard one, going
Yeah.
from having, even if it was the shadow of a man in the household,
Mhm.
it gave you some sense of maybe false security to
Mhm.
then having to jump out on your own. Because I'm a single mother,
Mhm.
and dating, trying to, looking, not trying to, waiting for, preparing for my divine mate,
Mhm.
and in that process, am learning a lot about myself and my identity as a mother. And can
Mhm.
you speak more to that journey for you, going through those different relationships and also going into managing your own business,
Mhm.
and from the perspective of that hat, if you will?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, this has been one of the most, I guess, like heart wrenching parts of my journey is my kids. I've always been drawn to um, being an advocate for kids. Like
Mm,
when I was young, I was the big cousin, and I'd keep all the little cousins rounded up and keep them in
wow.
order. And then, I had my mom had my brother when I was 15. So I'd be toting him around. And then I just had that hormonal thing where I couldn't wait to get married and have kids. I met my first husband, and he already had a son. And that just made me over the moon. I,
Yeah.
I fell in love with teaching kindergarten because I love their energy. It's part of my purpose is advocating for
Okay.
kids. And I
Wow.
still maintain that, like in my community, I'm an advocate for kids. I'm a court appointed homeschool witness. I'll go to court to rally for homeschool moms. I help homeschool
Wow.
groups. It's kind of my inner world work. I love kids. So it was really hard for me emotionally to accept that I was going to be a single mom. And that first that my husband left. It just left, and like we never heard from him again. And interestingly enough, I've heard from him in the last couple of years. He started trying to message us. So funny. But anyway, but for
They
20
always come
years,
back. They always
yeah,
come back.
right. Nothing for 20
Like it,
years.
like that, like, oh wait, I just saw it. Nope, it's been
Yeah.
20 years, buddy.
It's like now that they're grown, hey, what's up? Oh, thanks. Yeah. So
You looking good.
yeah, right. No, no, no. So yeah, so that was really hard. I was like, no, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. This isn't the way
Yeah.
I wanted it to be. And then when it happened again, I'm just like, are you kidding me?
Yes, I
Are
get
you
it.
kidding me? So
Mhm.
I did have to kind of sink into like my dad he was drafted and sent to Vietnam when he was like just turned 18. Like he turned 18 and like went they sent him the next week. So he kind of had this no whining, tough guy kind of mentality when I was growing up. And so we didn't typically like think of ourselves as a victim. There was like that wasn't allowed, like suck it up. So for the first time when the second divorce kind of fell apart, I fell into this like victimhood emotional state. Like, why me? Poor me. Why does the universe have against me? Why does God hate me? Why can't I do anything right? And it
Yeah,
was really the
yeah.
first time that I ever experienced that. I think it was good that I went through that because I can now empathize, and understand people when they come to talk from that state of being with me, whereas I couldn't before. But I really went down that hole and I had to fully experience those emotions and then get it together and then
Yep.
realize, you know what? I'm really very fortunate. Like this place that I live in, we have resources. Like I can't go hungry. There's food banks and churches and, social services. There's all of these resources
Yes,
and
yes,
there's housing resources. Like no one's going to let me if I don't want to live on the street, no one's going to let me live on the street. We
yes.
have this system here and I'm not going to fall through the cracks. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So, um, if I'm willing to do the work um, and move through this, I know I can come out on top. So I had to make that shift. But it's like I had to plunge into that victim thing just once to really fully appreciate coming out the other side. Um, But really being a business owner and having more um, influence over how and when I do things, how I spend my time, what I spend my time on, what's important, what I can let go of. Really learning to follow my inspired action and not just be a workaholic for the sake of being a workaholic, because I could do that. I could do that if I let
Very
myself.
well.
I like working, but I also like sitting with my feet up on the porch. So that has really freed me to enjoy my kids more and to appreciate the simple things in our lives and to show them the way. Like I just feel like so much of what we do is modeling because they see what we do much more strongly than they hear what we tell them, right? So they're watching us.
What does Abraham say? Words don't teach.
Right.
She
Yep.
always says that.
Right. So I love that I can show them, look, you've watched me start from scratch and do this
Yes.
and be anything I wanted to be.
Yes.
And you're here with me and you see what kind of life I've created for, our family.
Yes.
And what Jonathan and I have created for our family. And, you can do or be or have anything you want because you see that this is what is possible. So I love that. I love that about being an entrepreneur. And that really helps ground me in that loyalty to inspired action. Because
Yes.
I want to have more time for them. And if I stick to following inspired action versus just being a busybody, then I'm going to do what's important and then I'm going to walk away. Yeah.
Let's do drop the mic. I all of this is giving me so much life because I didn't even know there was such a thing as a court appointed child advocate.
Oh, yeah.
And come on now, so you are building this community not only for healers, but you're also creating and supporting a community for children, for vulnerable, populations, in my view.
Yeah.
And then also, giving that, modeling that energy for your children, for your family.
Mhm.
I just commend you, and I am so grateful that you made the time and space to come on the Meta Business Millennial podcast and talk about yourself. And I would just love for you to just kind of close out with anything else you kind of want to share about yourself and how people can get in touch with you and or your business, work with you as a client. That'd be really great at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Our website for the business is wellnessglobal.com. If you go there, you'll find what you're looking for in terms of, becoming a collaborator, being on our directory listing, or just subscribing to our e-blast, or connecting with me personally to talk more about coaching, or just, you want to have a 30-minute conversation about where you're at. You need a little pep talk. I'm happy to do that because for me, it's all about human connection, recognizing that we're all one family, and the divisions between us are illusions. And it feels great to support one another and encourage one another and help each other be where we want to be.
Yes.
And that's what I want to do with my life. So
Yes.
everything in your life is absolutely overcomable. If you're in a place where you feel overwhelmed or lost, or you want to do this but you feel stuck in this, it's really a sign to just go within. Just turn everything off, get quiet, and spend a lot of time with yourself. Go out in the woods if you need to. Go to the mountain. Go sit on the beach. And just turn it all off and tune in, because especially for us here, I know in the US particularly, there are so many resources. You can really have courage to make changes in your life and find your way through those changes.
Yes.
Just trust yourself.
And say yes.
Yes. Say yes.
Yes. Trust yourself and say yes.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us, me and Valarie, and just talking about this beautiful, beautiful business that she's created. And just for the record, it's going to be in the show notes. It's WellNest because it sounds like wellness, but it's well
Right. Nest with
NEST.
a T.
Yes, WellNest, and that is already it speaks to who you are, the nurturer, the sort of the mother template, the mother angelic template. You totally have that energy, and I'm so grateful that you've graced us with your presence. And so, for all of you all who want to stay connected with me, I am Erin Patton, and that also is my Instagram handle, my Facebook, my YouTube. And also, you can find more resources for the Meta Business Millennial podcast at the metabusiness.world, and also the offerings that I have from the metabusiness.world. So that concludes this episode of the Meta Business Millennial podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And that's all. Much love and light to you all. Peace. Did you really love this episode of the Meta Business Millennial podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatton.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.